Last fall, I was asked by Dr. Agusa to do a content analysis for my research methods class. So I sat down and I thought about what I should do it over. And the fact that I'm a communications major, and I'm fascinated by the pervasive influence of smartphones and social media in today's society, I chose to do something in regards to that. Now I say social media and smartphones in the same sentence because they're basically the same thing. You use your smartphone to access your various social media platforms. Now it's important to state that before I did this content analysis, I did neither assume a passive audience, such as proposed by the hypodermic needle theory, nor did I assume an active audience, such as in usage and gratification. I did, however, realize that what we watch is part of our socialization process. It can be part of our socialization process. And the American Association of Pediatrics estimates that by the time high schoolers graduate, they spend twice as many hours watching television as they have in school. So, I chose the TV show Awkward. This show is about a high school girl who, after mistakenly perceived suicide attempt, gets unwanted attention in school. There's a lot of social media in this show, and I chose it because of this reason. My peers told me you should choose this TV show because it reflects realities, smartphone and media use. So I sat down, I watched an episode, and I thought to myself, what if it doesn't? Fisher's narrative paradigm points out that as people, we consume stories on a regular basis. We assess these stories for their fidelity, credibility, and whatnot. Some of them we accept, and some we discard. The ones we accept becomes part of our subjective reality. What if we accept this story, and it doesn't portray reality in an accurate manner? So my hypothesis then was that the TV show Awkward depicts an inaccurate image of American teenagers' smartphone and social media use. So, let's start by examining reality. We all know that reality is subjective, but luckily there's subjective research out there. Lenhart, 2015, found that 73% of American teenagers have access to a smartphone, of which the majority are female, 74 compared to 71. She also found that 24% of teens go online almost constantly. O'Keefe and Pearson found that 22% of adolescents log on to their social media sites more than 10 times a day. That's a lot. So, I analyzed 2 episodes. I gave each episode a number, and I used randomizer.org to give me 2 random number, and these were 2 episodes that we came up with. Knock Your Nightmare and My Love is a Black Heart. I was only able to analyze 2 episodes because of time constraints. This was a class assignment. I developed a coding sheet, like this, with different behaviors, and the frequency of male and female. I'm also including mentioning in there, when characters are mentioning social media, because, they're including this in their cognitive process, so, yeah, I included that. And all of these behaviors were carefully defined beforehand, and my coders received the appropriate training. I sat down and, defined these definitions with them. 3 random scenes from each episode were also analyzed for the total amount of smartphones observable. So, first episode, Knock Your Nightmare. It shows a lot of frequencies in the video image sharing category. This was because, probably because of the story at that point. There was a naked photo that was going around on this fictional social media platform that they had created in the show. You can also see that there's both coders found a majority of females participating in these behaviors. I'll get back to that in a second. The intercoder agreement was calculated using Holste's formula for intercoder coefficient. And as you can see, the average was 88.37, which is above the accepted standard of 67%, so that's really good. Second episode, there's way less frequencies. You have Still a majority of females, and I'll get back to that in a second. And the intercode agreement in the second episode was also very reliable, 88.6%. So let's dive into the data then and see if it reflects reality. If 24% of teens go online almost constantly, we can assume that 24% of the teenagers observed in the show will be holding a smartphone or interacting with their laptop or something like that. From the first episode, in the 3 scenes, 57.5% were observed with smartphones. Second episode, 15.3%. I'm calculating the average between the two coders on this. So it's not too far off. 36.4% of the total characters observed was interacting with their smartphones. It's a little bit higher. Now, when it comes to gender, we know that there's a slight majority of girls that have access to smartphones. And in the show, this is apparent. However, it's exaggerated. There's such a vast majority of girls who interact with their smartphones compared to boys. This might be because the target audience is probably teenage girls. So they're accounting for this target audience. They're accounting for this by putting more girls into the show. I mean, like most of the main characters are girls. So, to conclude then, the data supports the hypothesis to a certain extent. It supports the notion of that it shows some characteristics that resembles reality. You know, you have a majority of girls, and the number of total characters with smartphones was close, but it wasn't exactly there. So more data is needed for reliability and generalizable purposes. I need to analyze the gender ratio of total characters in the show to account for the difference if there's more girls in the show than men. And I also need to analyze more episodes. I think that if I analyze more episodes, I will find that this show portrays teenagers in more social situations than in reality. Because if it was reality, it wouldn't be much fun to watch. It's not much fun watching a bunch of guys texting. So these are my references, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lars. Up next, we have Trisha Price.